The gavel slammed down like a gunshot. Judge, Private Lewis Carter, guilty of insubordination. The room didn't breathe. A cough somewhere in the back. The acrid smell of cigarette smoke curled through the air. Lewis sat frozen in his stiff army uniform, the soaked cuffs still cold against his skin from the march here. Outside, the rain beat harder against the barracks roof, each drop a countdown to something he couldn't yet name. Everyone thought they knew what would happen that day. But what came next no one could have imagined. Lewis Carter was 24 years old, from rural Georgia, the kind of town where Sundays were for church and the rest of the week was for surviving. His father was a sharecropper, his mother a school teacher who patched his clothes until they could barely hold together. Lewis had one dream: to fly. He'd grown up chasing barnstormers' planes as they buzzed over the fields, imagining himself in the cockpit, the world small beneath him. When America entered the war, he saw his chance. In 1942, he enlisted in the Army Air Corps. He believed, hoped, that if he fought for his country, the country would fight for him in return. But the moment he stepped onto the base at Tuskegee, he saw the truth. 2 cafeterias, 2 barracks, 2 worlds. One was for white soldiers. One was for black soldiers. The airfield smelled of oil and dust, but also of invisible lines drawn in concrete. The first week, an officer walked past him and said, "You missed a spot," tossing him a rag, assuming Lewis was a janitor, not a pilot in training. November 1943. Lewis was on night watch when a white private strolled into the officers' club and ordered him out of his own seat. The rules were clear. Lewis was allowed there as an officer in training. He refused, calmly, respectfully, but firmly. By morning, he was charged with insubordination. If this happened to you, would you fight or stay silent? Earlier that year, President Roosevelt had reluctantly approved the training of black pilots. They called them the Tuskegee Airmen, but being allowed to fly didn't mean being treated equally. Lewis's days were full of small cuts, tools missing, from his kit before inspections. Flight logs accidentally unsigned, erasing hours he'd earned. Orders to fetch coffee for men with fewer stripes on their shoulders. In war, enemies aren't always on the other side of the ocean. Corporal Raymond Holt, a white mechanic from Ohio, soft-spoken, who didn't much care for rules about color. He kept Lewis's P-51 Mustang ready to fly. Sergeant Alma Jenkins, a black nurse with eyes sharp as glass and a habit of slipping. Forbidden books to soldiers in trouble. Captain Briggs, tall, broad, and always smirking. The man who filed the charges. Rumor had it his brother wore a hood back home in Alabama. Raymond overhears Briggs ordering the club's steward to make an example of Lewis. He offers to testify. But before the hearing, Raymond is temporarily reassigned to another base. His testimony vanishes with him. Alma sneaks Lewis a copy of the Army's own regulations, underlined where it proves he had the right to be in that seat. That night, a storage fire destroys part of the records, including Lewis's flight logs. Lewis is forced to stand inspection with a row of white pilots, each glaring at him like he's invaded their home. The commanding officer walks past, skipping the white pilots entirely, but stopping in front of Lewis. "Uniform's dirty," he says, even though it's spotless. Lewis flies practice runs over Alabama cotton fields, but every time he lands, Briggs is there with another petty punishment: extra duty, equipment cleaning, guard shifts in freezing rain. By February 1944, Lewis's hearing is set. Alma: "If you go in quiet, they'll give you a slap on the wrist, but if you speak out, they'll bury you." Lewis: "If I stay quiet, they've already buried me." He decides to speak, not just for himself, but for every black soldier watching. What they saw next would make even the bravest man's blood run cold. The courtroom is a converted barracks. Wood walls, no heat, every man's breath visible in the air. Briggs sits at the prosecution table, tapping a pen, smirking. The judge begins to read the verdict, but a loud knock cuts him off. Raymond. Holt stands in the doorway, soaked from head to toe. He holds a telegram in a shaking hand. Raymond. Sir, this just came from Washington. The judge unfolds it. His eyes widen. It's an official War Department directive, ordering immediate integration of officer facilities. The room erupts in whispers. Briggs's smirk fades. The war outside was fought with bullets. The war inside, with paper. What Briggs doesn't know is that Alma wrote a letter weeks earlier to the NAACP, who pressured Washington directly. The telegram was the result. Lewis is cleared of charges, but victory is bitter. He's quietly reassigned to a supply base in England. He never sees combat again. He wore the uniform, he risked his life. And still, the war for dignity was fought on two fronts. History may change its clothing, but the truth beneath often stays the same. What do you think?